Welcome into the Beachside Blitz, where we surf the wave of sports. I am your host, Patricia Caputo, and let's get right into it with today's episode with our first segment of Seaside Sit Downs. I have head coach Craig Sicardo joining me on the show today. Coach, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really honored you asked me here.
No, I really appreciate it, and I'm so happy to tell everyone who might not know about the New Jersey Warriors. They are a postgraduate football program based here in New Jersey, and any player from a New Jersey community college who attends a New Jersey community college can play for the New Jersey Warriors. So I'll have you start off and tell us a little bit more about who the New Jersey Warriors are.
Well, first off, um, we like to think we are number one, a program that offers opportunity for kids who need that. And there's various reasons. But as you said, we serve the community colleges in New Jersey because there's no junior college football in New Jersey. Um, it- I apologize. Sussex Community College has junior college football. There's also Cap Academy in Ocean County that also competes on the level that we compete on. And what we are is a program that competes not only with junior colleges, but with Division III junior varsity teams. We play in our little conference at Thaddeus Stevens and Williamson College of the Trades out in Pennsylvania. And this year we have five Division III JV games, which I really like because our kids get to go out and they get to see that campus. Plus, their coaches usually come and talk to our guys after the game, and they get their eyes on our players because that's what our purpose is. Our purpose is to get these guys where they want to be um, when they move on to their 4-year career. Um, and that's who we are and what we are. I like to say that there are, three types that we're here for. And number one is maybe those who might have had problems ninth and 10th grade academically, and they need to get better in the classroom, as well as those who feel they need to develop themselves physically and skill-wise to be able to get to a 4-year school. We're also here for uh, student athletes who may have gone on to a 4-year and it didn't work out right away, especially their freshman year. So they come home and they have an opportunity to come and go to school at a community college, play for us, and then move on. And then number three, which we've really started to grow our roster with, is guys who are economically responsible, I guess you could say. These guys know they don't want that big student loan after 4 years. They know that they may not walk into a 4-year school and play right away, and they'll be holding a bag on a scout team, not traveling, things like that. And they decide they're gonna, go pay 2,500 a semester at say OCC, pay 1,500 during the season to play for us, and you're looking at $4,000 there for a semester. Where if even if they went to a Division III public school here in New Jersey, they'd be paying 15 to 17,000. So they may leave with an associate's degree that they earned after 2 years for about $17,000, may not have had to take a loan out, whatever. And then they go to their 4-year school and they don't have that $100,000 student loan. Well, this was our third fall. This is our fourth spring with the program. And what we have now is we're based in Jackson. That's, where we practice during the season and for spring ball. And 20 of our 41 on our fall roster were from the Shore Conference. And being a Shore Conference person my whole life, I was very excited about that. It's starting to be known throughout the county that if people need us for those things that we talked about, that they know the coaches feel confident that they can send their guys to us and we're going to take care of them and help them move on.
And I love the aspect of that because what fascinates me the most is that it's 40 guys from a bunch of different community colleges that they're all on different schedules. Where I know that just going to LSU, sometimes it's hard to get all the players in one room and they have schedules organized for themselves of like you're going to be at practice at this time, you're going to go to class at this time. But this is a whole different story, which I think actually makes it better because it talks more about that leadership, that determination aspect. So how do you all go about balancing, okay, this is everyone's school and class schedule, but then this is football practice. How do you go about determining that?
Well, number one thing is, very big on, uh, being where your feet are and giving focus and attention to what part of your life you're involved in the moment. We're big about in the moment. That's one of our standards. So when you're not at football, you better be, sitting in the front row of class and doing what you're supposed to be doing. When you're home with your family, you give all your attention to your family. Um, when you're at work, you give all your attention at your job because a lot of our guys do have to work, if you're going on a date with your girlfriend, you'd be there. Don't be worrying about the Warriors at that time. But when you are at practice with the Warriors or we're on our Zoom meeting on Monday nights, um, you are all in football. We want no nonsense and we go from there. But, they also know that we want them to be well-rounded. And they've also, one thing that's great about our guys is, and one thing where I had to calm down a little bit from when I was a high school coach and a Division III coach and was the time and being late because some of these guys are driving from South Jersey. And the one thing I love about our guys is they are so in and believe so much that they send me pictures. If there's traffic on Route 295 coming up from South Jersey, they're going, Coach, there's an accident, there's traffic. GPS says I'm gonna be 10 minutes late. And I'm like, all right, thank you. And they all do it. They're all very responsible about that, and they're very conscientious. And that is the culture that we have developed. And we don't talk about expectations, we talk about standards. And this being our last fall was our third fall, and this spring, the guys that we have now have really helped build the culture that we want. And the fact that we had the most guys from fall into the spring coming back, just as a testament to the kids that we have now. They believe in what we're doing. So we understand it's a different, like you said, it's unique. They don't all live on campus, so there's things that can happen. We have older players, we have players who have children. So because of our special situation, make sure sometimes coaches look at me like, and I have some coaches that played for me and they're like, Coach, you weren't like that 15 years ago. And I'm like, well, guys, now I'm like a grandpa. So, but those are the things that we have to understand because our guys, they want to be here. If they didn't want to play football, they wouldn't do this. They wouldn't drive an hour every day to come to practice. It's not like they're going to the dining hall and then walking over to practice and then, going over to the student center and then back to their dorms. These guys, this takes some effort. And, we make sure that we work with them as long as they stay within our standards because, our promise to them is we're going to get them where they want to be. Their promise to us is that they're going to allow us to do it the way we do it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that. And you're just so right. The traveling, everything, right? Again, it goes back to that you want to be here, that determination. And just to continue to talking about that, you're in the thick of it right now. Season's almost starting. What's that transition looking like from this summer program, summer camp into the fall where you're playing games?
Well, we start August 7th. We finished up spring ball right before Easter. And we like to finish that up and let them have some time to get really going in the classroom at the end for finals and things like that. Because that's big too. That's another place that we had the most students with a 3.0 grade point average that the program ever had this year. And that's something that, people, that's what we're about. That's what we're proud of. And So as we get ready to go right now, the big thing is uh, getting their transcripts. Our GM is in their portal. They have to give him their portal, and he checks their grades and everything else and make sure they do it right because we'll hold them out. It's academics first. We've held three in the last year out who their grade point averages were not very good during football season. We said, listen, you can't play in the spring. You can't practice with us in the spring, and you ain't gonna be able to play in the fall if you don't improve them grades. And I'll tell you what, we had three kids come in who had horrible grade point averages in the fall. Spring they were over a 3.0, so they're gonna be able to compete with us in the fall, and just things like that. Those little things are what are so important to us and our GM who started this thing. Um, and then, once we get them all in August, we'll have 3 weeks of practice and again this year we got the most guys coming back. This is going to be great. Usually it's trying to put a new team together. We laugh at the Division I guys, the big guys, the LSUs,
Yeah.
right? Who one of them said, they had a transition of they had 50 new players in 1 year. And you know what? It's funny now because that was us every year. And it's like, they got the same problems that we had. But, going into this season, we have about 15 to 20 kids coming back who played last year. And for us, a 2 year program, that is tremendous. And even more so than on the field, these guys are such good role models for the freshmen coming in. And that's how, the big word is culture. That's how culture is maintained from within these guys. So as we transition into the summer, the number of guys that we got coming back who are great kids, who have stayed with the program, who did what they had to do in the classroom, they're the ones who are going to be influencing these guys coming in. And that's going to make this year's transition much smoother than they have been in the past. We're going to be able to install more defense, install more offense, install different things that we weren't able to do because we're not actually starting over. And, the guys we got coming back as sophomores, uh, they're basically our seniors. And, they're going to be able to help the young guys transition into college football. We scrimmage another team like ourselves, the Connecticut State Wildcats. And then we're opening up with Montclair State University, and we are pumped up about that this year. It's so good to have them on the schedule.
That's going to be awesome. And with that, you put that emphasis on the role models, the leaders that can come in on this team and take these young guys under their wing. But you yourself, as a person and as a coach, put an emphasis on this leadership aspect. You've written a few books about it as well. So how do you go about bringing these guys in under your wing and putting that emphasis on leadership for them in life, but also on the field?
Well, every I joke with them at the end of practice, I give a talk. And it's because I get to it's right now, that's Instagram, Twitter. I never ever wanted to be on that. I was on LinkedIn for years, but I'd never go on Instagram or Twitter till we got this job. And all of a sudden it was like we got to be on Instagram and Twitter to promote the program. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do what I do on LinkedIn. I'm just going to, talk about the things that we talk about in the book. And so basically, our players, they get my message every day. And I shouldn't say my, it's our message. It's, what we talk about in the daily message on Instagram, Twitter is it's for our players and it's for them to take that in. And it's funny, you don't think they take it. Some of them, they'll come to practice and be like, "Hey, coach, I saw your story today, and I liked it, And when young kids do that, it's pretty good. It's like, okay, they're getting it. But even at the end of practice, I tell them, I could be long-winded, guys. You know it, they know it. But we give everybody a chance to talk at the end of practice about those things. So, I'll say what I got to say. Then I say coaches, and the coaches will all chime in, and then I'll say players. You guys. So we learn from each other. And that's where leadership comes from, and that's where leadership develops. And I just love that our assistant coaches are so into this because when we tell them, you're coming into this and this is how we do it, And we tell them right away, if you don't want to be like this, please don't, you don't want to coach with us. And I let our coaches know you're the head coach of your position. Our defense coordinator, you're the head coach of the defense. Special teams coordinator, you're the head coach of the special teams. I said, and I'm not going to say nothing unless I have to. And I rarely do because they're very conscientious, they're very prepared. And our players, they see us as a staff. This is a pretty cohesive staff we have. It's probably because we're not in the office together for all day getting on each other's nerves. But I am really proud of the staff that we've had, and we've had an influx, not too much. We haven't had big turnover, which is another thing that I love is our guys, our coaches also want to coach. So the leadership aspect is from everyone. We don't pick captains. Patricia, I stopped doing that years ago when I was a head coach at Mater Dei. I stopped doing it in '94. I stopped picking captains because I don't believe in them. I don't believe in status and title and all that other stuff. Our seniors should be the leaders, and in this case, our sophomores. They should be the leaders. And as a matter of fact, after a few weeks, I tell them, "You're all leaders now." Right? And what we do is we pick game day captains. We don't have captains that always go out for it. We don't pick captains. And I respect the fact that so many people do that. And it's such an honor at so many universities and colleges to be a captain. I was a captain up at FDU when I played, but there's something about not giving out that title and just watching each person play their role. And because they all lead different. And you don't need to be called a captain to lead. You don't need to be a head coach, be called head coach to lead. You don't need to, you just don't need, you just do. And that's what we're all about. We try not to be superficial about anything. We don't give helmet awards out, although, I love those. We did that at Lacey. I did it in Mater Dei. And, you know, but everything else is superficial. We want these guys to get better on the field, but more importantly, we want to get them better in the classroom, and we want them to be good men. And that's the bottom line. And I tell them all the time, listen, we're not here to make you a man. We're here to contribute to all that's been done in the past from your families or whatever. And if you didn't learn these ways, you're going to learn these ways. And we believe these are the ways you should carry yourself through life. And those are the things I like seeing the growth in our guys.
Yeah, I
You know,
love that. And I have to ask about the captain scenario. When you made that decision now 25, 30 years ago, was there backlash?
Yeah.
Like, did parents and things of that nature say we're not going to have captains, or what was the thought
No,
process going through everyone's head? It was just okay.
no, a couple kids didn't get voted captains, so they got all jealous, and I said, "Okay, that's it. We don't need captains."
Okay,
It's it,
good.
it's like I don't want to say it's like student council or anything like that. We're the popular kids, but yeah, it's high schoolish. You know what I mean? It's um vote for cat, and then if teams vote for captains with the players, they're like, oh, the coaches should have a say, and then if the coaches pick the captains, like, oh, the team should pick. Everybody's got their view on how captains should be picked and how things should be. No, we go out there, we practice during the week. Our coaches do what they have to do. Our players do what they have to do. We go out and play. And you know what? If I was at a four-year school, it'd be the same way too. It's the bottom line. It's football. It's a game. It's fun, right? I'm not militaristic. We're not militaristic. I just don't. It's football. Football's not war. It's far from war. It's a game. And we want our kids to have fun, and we're serious and we're intense and we play hard, right? But, afterwards we walk off the field and we're just regular dudes,
I love
you
that.
know?
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that thought process. And I want to talk about your coaching life personally as you coached for Miss McNeese State for a little bit in the beginning of your career. And I feel like
Yeah.
there's always some sort of Louisiana connection, right? When I think there's not, here's this Louisiana, New Jersey connection once again. But I want to ask you about that because in an interview with Are You Strong, you said that's where you learned the bulk of your coaching career. That's where you learned so much because you just didn't know at the time, being as young as you were going to McNeese State in Lake Charles, Louisiana. So can you talk about that experience and what you learned from starting your coaching career there?
I can. it was I don't want to say it was big culture shock and anything else, but I'm coming from a Division III school here in New Jersey. I go 1,500 miles south to McNeese, and man, I learned what Division I football was about. Just different things. Our kids had curfew for spring ball. We let them go out on Wednesday night. They go to Miss Kitty's and they're allowed to stay out till midnight. But I'm checking curfew at 10 o'clock at night in the off season. Um, and just checking breakfast in the morning and this whole deal where these kids are on scholarship and I learned that being on scholarship is kind of being in the military, right? And they own you, and you better do what they say. Or, we had this great offensive line coach. I loved him, and he used to yell at this one kid, and he'd be like, "I'll have you on the next train back to Thibodeau," and it was a huge learning experience for me, and it was where I learned that you take off, our players take off their hats in their meetings, just little things, all those little things that are more important than the bigger things. Because if you don't have the little things, the bigger things are going to break down, you know. Um, and besides the X's and O's, and you're going to learn X's and O's wherever you go, whenever you go. But it's those other things that, playing at Division III football, the coaches weren't allowed to talk to us. We weren't allowed to have, it's not like now. We didn't have spring ball in Division III. We didn't have any of all that stuff. So I learned how to manage time. I learned how to manage a, a, a room. I was coaching the receivers when I first got there, and then I coached the tight ends in the fall. Uh, there was such an eye opener to big time football as it is in Louisiana, as you know now. The Cowboys, they don't want to be go and playing the Tigers, but uh, um, it's big stuff. I mean, I went down there, men are wearing ties and women are all dressed up, to go to football games and I met my wife down there, half, my family's there, half my kids' families down there, down there in Lake Charles. And um it kind of consumed me. It took me over and I said, you know what? Yeah, this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
That's great.
But then I went back to Jersey, started teaching and coaching here.
Yeah, you did right after. So that's what I'm going to ask you about now because you coached at Monmouth University for a little bit. Then you also coached at Lacey for years and years. You mentioned Mater Day. So can you talk about your journey from coaching at all of these schools back in New Jersey and then becoming a head coach of the New Jersey Warriors?
Well, down at McNeese, as I told you, I learned so much, and I loved our head coach and just how even how our how our staff meetings were. It was just so impressive to me because I didn't come from anything like that. And after our last game in '89, our head coach got fired. So we got a new coach in. And this guy, Bobby Kiesler, he's a stud, and he turned the program around. And he eventually went to Louisiana Monroe. And of course did a great job. He was a great football coach, but things were different. And as a GAs, we don't get fired. We just, the new coaches acquire us. So, I mean, my wife and I got married. We went on our honeymoon. We drove to Dallas, then drove down to San Antonio in 4 or 5 days because I had to be back to drive the van for recruiting Saturday, a. And I was so loyal from those lessons that I learned from Coach Jackson when I was at that. Things were different when Coach Kiesler were there and a little looser and things like that. And you're young, 22, 23. I was your age. And I was like, I don't know. I liked how Coach Jackson did things. And so I had a lot of contacts back here in Jersey, obviously. And I came home and I ended up going to Mater Dei to coach. I was to coach JV baseball, and I ended up being the varsity coach because Coach Stimpson, our head coach, was in the hospital. Slipped a disc in his back, so I ended up coaching the varsity baseball team for the spring. I'm going to go to Middletown South and coach with my good friend, Coach Bobby Gennarelli at Middletown South. And then the modern day coach leaves, and I'm 24 years old, and then I get the head job at Mater Dei. So I stayed there for 10 years, became the AD 4 years later, the AD football coach, and man, did I love that. Um, and more so to grow the whole athletic department, and it was that place has a such a spot in my heart, and uh, they're knocking it down pretty soon because the school had to close up there. But then, Coach Priscilla from Lacey, he was the one telling me about the public school pension, all this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but Coach, I love this. We got to state final at Mater Dei, and we lost to St. Joe's. It bothers me every morning. And then opportunity to be the head coach at Pinelands Regional came up. So I got into public school teaching and coaching 25 years ago. Plus, my kids were young and allowed me to be as the AD. I was 12 months a year. It allowed me to be home for 2 months, and then I sent the kids to daycare, and everything worked out great. I stayed at Pinelands as the head coach for 4 years. Um, and we got to the state playoffs for the first time. Lost a tough run to West effort, but another one that you think about every day. And then opportunity at Monmouth University came up, and I knew Coach Callahan really well, and I spoke to him about being able to do that, and he let me come on. I coached the wide receivers there for a year. We had a great season. It was a great year. I was so blessed and so lucky that they allowed me to coach with them there. I was still teaching at Pinelands while I was coaching there, and then Coach V called for about the 15th time, and I said, "All right, you know what? I have now. I gotta, because Coach V is he's the closest person to me outside of my family." Um, and they struggled a little bit that year, and I said, "You know what? I'm gonna go there." And then we ended up having a great run. We won, two South Jersey Group Threes, 12 and O's, and uh, I hate talking about records, but we were 56 and 14 when we were together there. But then it got to the point my son played for us, and that's a whole nother story. And then I was ready to get back to college. So after our 2010 championship that season, I went up to college in New Jersey and started getting back into to college football. And from there, I went to Kane for a couple of years as the OC, and then I went back to the college in New Jersey. Um, and I coached the quarterbacks for years up there, and then it just got to the point where I'm driving from Lacey to Ewing, 5, 6 years, and it's like, all right, you know what, maybe it's time. So I decided that I wasn't going to do it, and my son was in Notre Dame graduate school up at South Bend, and my wife and I are driving down to Lake Charles. It was the last game of the year at Notre Dame, so we went to the game with my son and his wife, and then we headed down to Lake Charles for Thanksgiving. And I'm in Missouri, and the phone rings, and it's Mr. Sean Kenish, the GM of the Warriors, and it so happens that my good friend who I was going to coach with at Middletown South, Bobby Gennarelli, he gave him my name. And I'm like, what? This isn't something I heard of this, but this isn't something that somebody asked. Rob Davis asked me. He's the head coach at Egg Harbor Township now, was at Barnegat. He asked me like 3 months before. He's like, would you ever consider being a coach at the New Jersey War? I'm like, what? Word? No, no, Rob, no. Um, but so I took the call, driving. I'm in Missouri. I'm like, listen, my wife's looking at me like, what? And I said, do me a favor. I'm heading down to Louisiana for Thanksgiving right now. I'll be home on Monday. If you get somebody by then, that's great. If not, give me a call Monday, and I'll talk with you. He came into my office at Lacey. We talked. I thought about it for 3 weeks, and I said, you know what? This is this might be something that I'm supposed to do. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that I'm supposed to do, because I love shore conference football. I love New Jersey football. And there's so many 27-year-olds sitting on bar stools wishing they had an opportunity, saying, man, I wish I had an opportunity to play college football. And I said, you know what? We don't have any junior college football for these kids that need this. I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. My wife was like, "Are you sure? I'm going to do this because these kids wouldn't have an opportunity if this program's not there." I said, "You know what? That's a good thing. It's not about winning championships anymore. It's not about the rings. It's not about any of that anymore. I'm 59 years old, been through all those things. Now it's about these guys and helping these guys get to where they got to be, you know? So that's it.
Yeah.
That's my story, I guess you can say.
And judging by the success of your team and how many players have gone on to other schools, I think you made the right decision.
Oh, it's well, and you know what? The fact that also because I enjoy college football, I was thinking that when I was able to, because when you're 30, you think when you're 59, you're gonna be walking around with a cane and you're not gonna be able to do anything anymore. And it's like, and part of me still, yeah, would like to coach at a 4-year school and maybe have that opportunity one day. But now we got grandkids, and my wife's like, no, we're not going to Iowa for you to go
Yeah.
coach
Right.
football, right? So the fact that I'm retiring from education in 16 school days
Mhm.
and that have this program now, I'm really looking forward to being able to put everything into this program because it's harder than you can imagine being in a school building all day and being a head coach of a college program. I did it as a coordinator and as an assistant coach too on the Division 3 level. It was tough. Now I'm recruiting. Myself and the GM, we are the main recruiters and everything else. And I don't want to be doing football while I'm in school. And it's so, I got 6.5 hours where now I'm going to have that 6.5 hours to focus on the Warriors, the now, the future, the recruiting. So I'm really looking forward to that because when I went down to McNeese, what I decided I want to do was be a college football coach, and I ended up spending 36 years in public in education, 25 in public, and then 35 years in education, 25 in public, 10 in private. So.
That's so awesome. And we can't wait. We'll definitely keep up on the New Jersey Warriors and everything that's going on as August and September roll around and we can keep up on them. So thank you so much for joining me, Coach Sicardo. I really appreciate you coming on this segment of Seaside Sit Downs and speaking with me for a little bit.
Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate whenever anybody gives us an opportunity to talk about the Warriors, because we want them to know that, hey, this is a real thing. This ain't a ragtag. We run this like a college program. We just don't have dorms. We don't have a dining hall. And, we don't have coach's offices, but we got a field. We got a place to practice. We got a place to play. We got a bus that takes us to games. And, um, we run the operation as classy and as professional as it would be at any college program. And again, I appreciate you asking me to come in so we can, get some exposure to people. And I wish you all the best in your career. All right, graduating from that great university down in Baton Rouge. That was my father-in-law's love. That's all he talked to me about. I have to sit at the kitchen table, and he gave me pictures he has of Billy Cannon and action pictures signed by them and the two guards that were pulling on the sweep play. Um, so he was all LSU. It's.
I love it. It is. It's a complete culture down there. Like they love purple and gold. That's literally what
And
they are not
it's
kidding when they say that.
in the NFL, forget it. My mother-in-law, she's from New Orleans.
Yep.
I mean, that Saints flag was out every Sunday. She just loves them. And Archie Manning was her guy.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
know? And even my wife, she talks about Sean Payton and Drew Brees. She calls them by their first names. It's like Sean and Drew, you know.
They love
So
them. Seriously, they changed the whole trajectory of football down there with them winning that Super Bowl. So
they did.
it's amazing. That's what's just special about sports, that football does have the opportunity to bring people together. So yeah, so I can't wait to keep up on the New Jersey Warriors. Again, I really appreciate you joining me today on the Beachside Blitz.
All right. Thank you so much and good luck and all the best.